This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Li Yi's loud shout reverberated throughout the entire sky garden. His voice traveled thousands of miles, reaching far and wide, and everyone's ears could hear him. The three people hidden in the void were all stunned. Li's face was extremely solemn. She kept casting voice transmissions, ordering Li Yi not to get into a conflict with Yunxiao, but she found that her voice transmissions were blocked by the other party. Domineering, domineering. 80 clapped and laughed. Not only did he win in a domineering way, but his shout was also domineering. Although he disobeyed the chief's order, I still admire him. The tyrannical sky tiger revealed a worried expression and remained silent. All eyes fell on Yunxiao. The gap between their realms was too big, and the fact that Li Yi had challenged him directly puzzled everyone. With his extremely arrogant character, he should have directly challenged the superior Heaven's Expanse Palace. Moreover, the only one who had a chance of defeating him and avenging the three regions was Cheng Heaven's Expanse Palace. Even Cheng Haomiao felt that it was time to fight. His mind was constantly analyzing Li Yi's punch. The combination of extremely strong demonic power and frosty air was indestructible and extremely overbearing. However, Li Yi's opponent had stunned him. Yunxiao chuckled. It's a good banquet. Why do you have to make it so full of people? Is this what you call a martial arts? No wonder people call you a monkey of the southern mountain range. Can't you establish a good image for the southern mountain range? Li Yi sneered, so much nonsense. Can it save your life? The ears of the world are all here, you only need to answer me if I dare or not. It's not that I don't dare to, Yunxiao said with a smile, his hands clasped behind his back. I just don't care, because I really can't find a reason to attack. Li Yi burst out laughing. His laughter was unusually loud. No one in the hall was in a daze as they listened to his laughter quietly. After laughing to himself for a while, he laughed so hard that tears came out. I haven't thought of how to torture you yet. All the methods in the world are too light and too kind. I will bring you back to Death God Palace and let you experience the pain I've suffered 10 times. With the help of Beiming Lifeng, Ruan Zimao gradually dispelled the Jinqi in his body. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and his eyes were dull. His reputation had been ruined in an accident today, causing him to be filled with dejection and somewhat at a loss. Although Li Yi was looking forward to a battle with Yunxiao, he knew that his opponent had extraordinary strength, so he was very afraid of him. After provoking him to no avail, he gave up on pressing him. Instead, he looked at the group of heroes with contempt and sneered, "There's no need to fight in the ring, I think we should just finish it today. I want to take that Jiang Ruobing as my subject. If anyone is not convinced, come up. If I meet anyone who doesn't fight today in the arena, I will kill them without a doubt." Everyone's heart trembled. They were so intimidated by his aura that their hearts turned cold. One by one, they turned their heads away, not daring to look directly into his eyes. I don't believe that no one in the world can take care of you. Cheng Haomiao's voice finally rang out, like a hot spring pouring into everyone's cold hearts, slowly raising a glimmer of hope. All of a sudden, everyone seemed to have been resurrected. As they looked at Cheng Haomiao with longing, this was the last person in their hearts who could save their dignity. I was just waiting for you to say that. Li Yi said coldly as he unsheathed the sword in his hand. With a swing of his sword, the world instantly turned cold. The battle between the top powerhouses of the younger generation across the entire heavenly martial continent was imminent. Everyone held their breath, and an extremely oppressive atmosphere spread. Even Li Yi was feeling a little pressured by the high-tier boundless sea, and he no longer dared to be as relaxed as he was before. Cheng Haomiao did not dare to underestimate his opponent. He made a move in the air and the soul-devouring flag appeared in his hand, ready to fight with all his might. In fact, he was also feeling bitter in his heart. Ruan Zimao had been defeated, and Beiming Lifeng had given up on the battle. This was understandable. After all, these two were only one-star martial sovereigns. If he, who was also a 2-star martial sovereign, were to give up on the battle, he would become the laughingstock of the world. Therefore, he had no choice but to fight. Just as the atmosphere was tense, a faint fragrance suddenly drifted over. Hundreds of flowers bloomed in the garden. A breeze blew, and the petals floated into the air. The flowers were like brocade, like a dream, adding a few hints of wind and moon to the cold and somber atmosphere. A clear and melodious voice rang out, causing one to reminisce. Flowers bloom, flowers fall, and the sky is filled with flowers. Who will pity you when spring comes and goes? Once spring is over, the beauty will grow old, and the butterfly dream will be like clouds and smoke. A ray of light appeared in the garden and gradually spread out. The beautiful figures of 3 beautiful women stood in front of everyone, and with a single order, the flowers paled in color and the moonlight lost its brilliance. Jiang Ruobing, Neilin Jishuan, and Xiao Xue walked out of the flowers. The 3 of them moved their lotus petals lightly. One of them had a cold expression, one of them had a dark gaze, and the last one had a smile on her face. The murderous atmosphere between Cheng Haomiao and Li Yi had unknowingly crumbled. The heroes in the garden were dumbfounded. They were all as calm as the spring breeze, and the atmosphere became quiet. Yunxiao's heart was moved as well. Although he had seen Jiang Ruobing in men's clothes, the red makeup on her face still made his eyes light up, like a white lotus out of the world, noble and heroic, and beautiful. Younger cousin sister, why have you come? Ruan Xiling withdrew his long sword and hurriedly went up to meet the attack. My brother is injured. When Ruan Zimao, who was recuperating, heard that, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. He was really a pig-like teammate. The thing he was most afraid of in such a sorry state was to be seen by Jiang Ruobing, Ruan Xiling, this pig-like teammate. So she is Jiang Ruobing's darling. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. That city-toppling beauty was indeed worthy of her reputation. Everyone suddenly felt that the shocking dowry for this joust for a spouse event was nothing compared to Jiang Ruobing's real appeal. Jiang Ruobing was stunned for a moment. I heard that cousin is hosting a banquet here to meet friends. I also have a few good friends I want to meet. So, I came to take a look. How did it become a martial arts battle? Cousin Zimao, are you alright? I'm fine, it's just a superficial wound. Ruan Zimao forced himself to gather his true chi and put on a relaxed look as he laughed a few times, but his head was covered in sweat. Jiang Ruobing frowned. I can see that cousin's injuries are not light. So this friendly martial competition is actually a martial competition. It's fine if we don't hold it. It's fine. Ruan Zimao forced his body up and said in surprise, younger cousin's sister has always been in Red Moon City and has not left. I wonder which good friend she is meeting. Jiang Ruobing's gaze swept across the crowd. All the men tried their best to puff up their chests and raise their heads slightly to pose, so that they could meet the beauty's gaze at the best angle. The oppressive and embarrassed atmosphere caused by Li Yi completely disappeared, as if nothing had happened. Why are you alone? Where's big brother Qingyun? Jiang Ruobing ignored all the posturing and threw something out of her hand, which turned into a stream of light and shot toward Yunxiao. Following the light, all eyes fell on Yunxiao, full of shock, confusion, resentment, and jealousy. Ruan Zimao's face darkened as well, and the way he looked at Yunxiao began to turn extremely unfriendly. Yunxiao felt dozens of gazes on him, as if he was being roasted on a fire. He smiled wryly and said, he might have slept late last night and is still in bed. The object in his hand was a crystal box. Yunxiao injected his divine will into it and was immediately overjoyed. It was indeed the moon pearls of the East Sea, 18 of them, not a single one missing. This time, dozens of divine thoughts swept over. He snorted coldly, and an invisible spiritual force spread out from his body, blocking all the probing. He flipped his right hand and put the box away. Everyone was shocked. The obstacle that their divine will had encountered was like a high wall that they could not climb over, causing them to return without any success. Many people immediately thought of Yunxiao's movement technique when he seized the throne, which was very similar to the teleportation that only 8th-tier alchemists could perform. At this moment, through the collision of their mental powers, they immediately guessed that he was an 8th-tier alchemist, and the contempt they had for him before was reduced by half. Young Master Yunxiao is still as funny and humorous as ever. How could big brother Qingyun sleep late? He must have something urgent to do. Nailin Jishuan chuckled, but her eyes were filled with worry. The seduction technique on her body naturally spread out, making the man who was looking at her feel her bones go soft. Her heart was like a monkey, and she kept swallowing her saliva. What urgent matter can he have? Yunxiao laughed. I think he just overslept. Lady Ruobing, this is the correct item, I'm very grateful. Jiang Ruobing snorted and said coldly, someone helped you a lot to retrieve this. She asked me to tell you that a gentleman's agreement is worth 1,000 gold. Yunxiao laughed. He knew that it was Jiang Ruame, and she was afraid that he would break his promise. Tell her not to worry. I've always been a man of my words. Jiang Ruobing snorted and said sarcastically, I didn't know that you knew so many people. You even know her. You're really capable. Other than a cold sneer, there was also a hint of bitterness in her tone. In the ears of others, it was as if a woman was complaining to her lover. Everyone was shocked. Ruan Zimao's already pale face became even paler. His eyes were about to spit fire as he said coldly, Cousin, how do you know this Li Yunxiao? Jiang Ruobing was obviously in a bad mood. She turned her eyes from Yunxiao and said coldly, Do I need cousin to ask who I'm with? I heard that Biao older brother is also participating in the arena tournament this time. I do not know what Biao older brother's intention is. Ruan Zima was at a loss for words under Jiang Ruobing's cold gaze. He had always taken good care of this younger cousin of his and had never been harsh on her. He was at a loss for words after being rebuked by Jiang Ruobing. Younger cousin Ruobing, could it be that you still don't understand my brother's feelings? Ruan Xiling walked out from the crowd and said, A fair and graceful lady, a gentleman's desire. My cousin and you were childhood sweethearts. In order to get a chance to participate in the competition, he begged his aunt and uncle countless times before he got the chance. How could you not know of my brother's kind intentions? Jiang Ruobing's expression changed slightly. She said angrily, You guys fight in your own arena. Don't get involved with my marriage. I won't marry anyone I don't like, even if he's the most powerful man in the world. If you want to get married, then let my parents get married by themselves. She turned around in anger and was about to leave. Suddenly, Li Yi, who had been silent all this while, laughed and said, not bad at all. You're my type. Little girl, wait for me at home. After I defeat these so-called heroes, I'll take you under my feet. His laughter was filled with savagery and lust. The seats were filled with people dressed in snow-like clothes, but they did not dare to voice out their anger when they heard Li Yi's frivolous words. Ruan Zimao's heart was filled with anger. He forcefully gathered his Xinqi and immediately felt as if all the bones in his body were frozen. His Xinqi instantly scattered and he vomited a mouthful of blood. Can't you see that my heart already belongs to someone else? Chang Haomiao sneered. Do you like to be a scapegoat? Li Yi's gaze turned cold as he snorted with a strange smile. As long as she becomes my woman, even if her heart is as hard as stone, I can still train her to become a bitch. As soon as these vulgar words came out, the air froze and a murderous intent filled the air. Jiang Ruobing let out a furious roar in embarrassment and flew up with her sword. Her sword turned into a long rainbow and went straight for Li Yi. Her swordsmanship was ethereal and beautiful, like a fairy, but her strength was limited. It was like an egg hitting a rock. Aya, you have a big temper. I like to play conquer. Li Yi frivolously stuck his head out and sniffed the air. He praised, it smells so good. Then, without even looking, he lifted the sword in his hand and gently knocked it on the body of Jiang Ruobing's sword. A force bent the sword slightly, and it bounced up suddenly, directly sending Jiang Ruobing flying. Nailin Jishuan's clone stood up and caught Jiang Ruobing. She said angrily, How dare you hurt young lady Ruobing? Li Yi's face was full of disdain. He laughed and pounced on her, laughing lecherously, What heiress? What natural beauty. I think you're not bad either. I'll accept the two of you on this trip to the Red Moon City. In the future, the two of you will stay in the mansion every day and let me have a good time. His movement technique was extremely fast, and he arrived in front of Nalan Jishuan in an instant. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Nalan Jishuan and Jiang Ruobing. Just as the two girls were in a state of shock, Li Yi's expression suddenly changed. An inexplicable chill rose from the bottom of his heart, and his entire body was suddenly filled with fear. His face was filled with shock as he retracted his hand and retreated. An indifferent voice came, ethereal and melodious, "Do you have to make me find a reason to slap you?" Li Yunxiao. Li Yi was shocked and furious. "You dare touch me?" Yunxiao was stunned. He stood with his hands behind his back and said with a laugh, "Fellow townsmen, you must be joking. Could it really be as they said, that his brain was damaged from cultivating too much? It's just a matter of beating you up for a few minutes. How is it related to whether you dare to or not? I was just disdainful earlier." Li Yi's face darkened and he said coldly, "Disdain? Good, good, I know you're quite capable, even rain died in your hands. But now, I'm even more powerful than you was back then." The power in his body suddenly exploded, and his body seemed to have become bigger. The bright red Zu's bloodline appeared on his arm, and an extremely demonic chi rippled in the entire garden. The level 9 treasured sword flashed with a cold light, and pierced through the air. The defensive enchantment in the space garden emitted rays of blue light, forming different shapes and spreading out. It turned into a dazzling sky, beautiful beyond compare, but no one had the mood to admire it. Not only in the garden, but for a moment, everyone's attention fell on Yunxiao, and the experts hidden in the void also focused. Li's expression suddenly changed, and he wanted to escape in an instant. He cried out, "Stop him!" Xiaoba stretched out his hand and stopped Li. "Let's wait and see. I think this kid has the strength to fight Li Yunxiao. Although the chief has asked him to avoid Li Yunxiao for the time being, it seems that he will have to fight in the arena sooner or later. If we try it out now, we'll be able to see the difference between the two of them and prepare for the group arena." The tyrannical sky tiger nodded its head in agreement with Xiaoba. In the city lord's mansion, Ruan Hongyu's expression was the same as usual. A bunch of trash. All of them wanted to marry Ruobing, but they didn't even dare to make a move when Ruobing was being bullied. What's the use of calling these trash over? Jiang Churan said, "This Li Yi has an arrogant and despotic personality. He does everything he likes. He's not someone who will do great things. But this city lord of Yanwu always gives me a feeling that I can't see through him. I can take this opportunity to see what he's really like. This kid is brave, but he doesn't care about the difference in strength," Ruan Hongyu said. "He's brave but not smart. We can't do that." Jiang Charan laughed. "It's not advisable to be too profound. It's also not advisable to have stage fright. What do you think we should do then, madam?" Ruan Hongyu scoffed. Zimao lost earlier because it happened too suddenly. If both of them were fully prepared and had a fair fight, it would be hard to say who would win. Jiang Charan smiled. "Zimao is indeed good. Let's see how the city lord of Yanwu is. Ruobing seems to have a good relationship with him. She even stole the moon pearl from the East Sea and gave it to this man." Above the sky garden, an overbearing demonic aura filled the sky and enveloped Yunxiao in an instant, while a sword beam cut through the void and fell in an instant. Everyone held their breath, their faces pale, and they couldn't help but take a step back. Chang Haomiao's face was also solemn. Judging from the momentum of the sword, Li Yi's strength might be above his expectations. He now hoped that Yunxiao could hold on a little longer and waste more of Li Yi's energy. That way, he would be more confident when he came up to clean up the mess. "I've missed you after our farewell." He thought that they could have a drink and chat happily, but he didn't expect that he still had to slap his mouth to make him feel good. "Since that's the case, I'll be a living Lei Feng again." Yunxiao smiled indifferently, paying no attention to the sword chi. With a yellow flash in his hand, the Great Sorrow Twilight Cloud Mirror fell into his hand, which instantly turned into a shield and seemed to stand in front of him. Bang! The domineering sword chi hit the mirror and bounced back. Although the light did penetrate the mirror, it was instantly extinguished by Yunxiao. After that, he picked up the mirror and held it high in his hand. A yellow light shot out. Li Yi turned pale with fright. The reflected sword gleam was almost 100% of its strength. In his shock, he hurriedly channeled his arm and blasted out an even stronger force to dispel the sword gleam. At this moment, the light of the Great Compassion Mirror descended and shone directly on him. The surrounding space suddenly seemed to become viscous, and his elemental energy began to have difficulty circulating. His body's movements also became extremely slow. Space power? Li Yi was taken aback. He stomped on the ground and a force spread out from his limbs and bones. A rumbling sound came from the yellow light. He was going to use his demonic power to break the seal. With a sneer, Yunxiao teleported up in the air and threw a punch. Li Yi's eyes glowed with ferocity, and he suddenly shouted, "Shattered ice true armor." A blue cold air spread out of his body and condensed into an ice armor that covered his body. When Yunxiao's fist hit the cold air, it was greatly hindered, as if it had hit a pile of sand. Not only that, but the cold air also shot out from Li Yi's body, freezing his arm into a light blue popsicle. Big brother Yunxiao. Seeing this, Jiang Ruobing panicked and raised her sword, wanting to rush forward to help. Nailin Zhishuan quickly stopped her and said, "Don't go if it's dangerous. Young Master Yunxiao has extraordinary strength. He won't be in danger." Although she comforted him like this, she was not confident in her heart. She knew how powerful Yunxiao was, but she did not think he could defeat a 2-star martial emperor. "Your arm is completely crippled after being frozen by my ice true chi." Li Yi laughed smugly and said, "Do you still remember Chen Dashing and Shao Qingwang? The two of them were injured by my master's icy chi, and now you're following in their footsteps." With a flash of sword light in Li Yi's hand, he thrust it toward Yunxiao's forehead at lightning speed and said with a hideous smile, "Everything is over. I didn't expect you to be so weak. I'm so disappointed." As the sword touched his glabella, Li Yi's pupils contracted. A bad feeling rose in his heart and immediately spread throughout his body. Because he saw Yunxiao's calm eyes looking at him with a smile. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and he did not know whether it was a mocking or cold smile. It made him tremble, but at the same time, he was furious. "It's this smiling face, this damn disgusting smiling face, I've fantasized about tearing it apart countless times." Now, it had appeared in front of him again. Childish. Yunxiao smiled indifferently. Bang. The blue ice on his arm was instantly shaken off, and a trace of black chi surrounded his hand, and the demonic pattern was faintly visible. What? Li Yi was instantly shocked, so much so that his hand that was holding the sword trembled. In fact, Yunxiao could have broken the cold air with his imperishable golden body, but it would be a suicide to reveal it under such circumstances. He would rather use the fiend energy that could corrode everything. He took a step forward and easily dodged the sword. With a smile on his face, he closed in on Li Yi and conjured a spell with one hand. A strange seal formed in his hand and was directed at Li Yi's chest. When the seal landed on the shattered ice true armor, flower-like runes spread out, and cracking sounds could be heard wherever the runes passed. How is that possible? He can actually break through the shattered ice true armor? Beiming Lifeng's entire body trembled. This shattered ice true armor was one of the protective arts recorded in the profound ice essentials, and was much stronger than ordinary battle armors. It also had an extremely cold attack attribute, and profound level weapons were hard to break through. Yet, it had been shattered by a single palm from him? This was simply unimaginable. It was as if he was the one being attacked instead of Li Yi. His entire person was stunned. Bang. Finally, the entire shattered ice true armor shattered, turning into cold light speckles that scattered in the air. Li Yi's face was reflected, and he was so shocked that he almost stuffed a watermelon into his mouth. "You think I can't slap you if you open your mouth wide?" Then I'll knock your teeth out first, Yunxiao said coldly. A cold glint flashed in his hand, and a bolt of lightning appeared. The hammer appeared in his hand, and he slammed it down on Li Yi's mouth. Li Yi was scared out of his wits and quickly shut his mouth. Thousands of lightning bolts flashed down and struck his face. With a flash of green light, his entire body was sent flying with a scream. Everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as they trembled in fear. Just looking at that attack made them shiver all over. They were completely chilled. As the saying goes, don't expose one's shortcomings when scolding, and don't hit one's face when hitting someone. This guy actually used 10,000 lightning bolts to strike the other party's face. Was this Tao Wu even human?